Hello, my name is Nirmal Kishnani. I am an educator, researcher, and author based in Singapore. In my work, I focus on sustainability in Asia, and I ask if the things that we do as architects and planners are enough to mitigate our impact on the planet. Today, I'd like to share ideas and projects from my new book, Ecopuncture, Transforming Architecture and Urbanism in Asia. The book is centered on the idea of regenerative design. The argument here is that we must somehow get past a mindset of doing less harm. We must find ways to actively do good. Now, the book explains why this matters in Asia, how this can be operationalized at the drawing board. All of us who work in the design and construction sector accept the argument that buildings must reduce their impact. In Asia, this often means going green. Now, a green building reduces consumption and waste. It strives to improve indoor environmental quality. Typically, the pathway to a green future is said to be compliance with green labels. Now, here are some examples of green certified buildings in the city of Mumbai in India. Mumbai has more than 750 green buildings. This is a higher number than any other city in the country. And for that reason alone, it's been called the greenest city in India. We are now seeing a generation of super green buildings that do more than, say, a platinum rated green one. Here, the goal is often very deep cuts in energy consumption. Here are some examples of super green buildings in the region. A case in point, the zero energy building at the BCA Academy, which is second from left, is some 40 to 50% more energy efficient than a conventional building. It produces enough energy on site to match what it consumes in a year. But while the goal of super green is talked about, examples are still very few. Most Asian developers, if they're interested, will simply opt for green certification. So the question is this enough? So back to Mumbai, even as it constructed these green buildings, land use in the city was being altered. Here, the first casualty was the ecosystems. Between 1973 and 2010, the Mumbai metropolitan area lost some 36% of its forest cover, 31% of its wetlands. All of this was in favor of an expanding urban footprint. The city's water bodies shrank by 12%. Its hydrological system in general was compromised. This you see in the middle is the river Methi that runs through the heart of the city. In the late 1970s, the government created a new central business district for which about 220 hectares were taken from the river. In the 1980s, the construction of a second runway at Mumbai Airport resulted in a series of very disruptive bends over a short stretch of the Methi. So as a result of these and other changes, Mumbai experiences very serious floods every year. The most catastrophic of these was in the summer of 2005, in which over 1,000 people died, accompanied by much loss of property. The situation, of course, is not unique to Mumbai. Other cities in Asia suffer the same fate. Take Bandung on the island of Java in Indonesia. Between 1983 and 2002, the urban and suburban precincts within the Upper Citarum Basin, where Bandung is located, tripled in size. Industrial areas also surged 100-fold. Forest cover, meanwhile, was halved. From 1990 to 2008, a very significant portion of the water catchment was paved over. The North Bandung catchment, for instance, was reduced by some 60%. Now, as a result, Bandung today copes with yearly floods, some of which paralyze the city for days at a time. Another Asian city that's struggling with water is Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. In 1995, Hanoi had 2,100 hectares of lakes and ponds. By 2016, that figure was almost half. Only a fifth of all wastewater in that city is treated. Over 90% of surface water is severely polluted. In 2016, some 200 tons of dead fish washed up on the shores of the West Lake as a direct result of poor water quality. So clearly, the construction of green or even super green buildings does not appear to alter the evolution of the urban landscape. What is needed here is a rethink of how every act of design, whether small or large, has an impact beyond its site and shell. Designers and planners need to find a way to bridge across scales. The one idea that we hear at the front lines of design thinking is regeneration. So what is regeneration, and what does it mean in the context of high-density Asian cities? Well, to break this down, let's start with the notion of nature-centric solutions. To regenerate, we must engage nature in constructive ways. But how? Here are a few examples by a Singapore firm, Woha. Newton Suites, which was completed in 2007, had a green plot ratio of 130%. Now, green plot ratio is the total surface area of greenery within a development divided by the site area. So in other words, this building had more greenery vertically distributed than the size of the land that it sits on. In 2013, Woha completed Park Royal Collection Pickering, a hotel in the Central Business District, which has a green plot ratio of 240%. By 2016, the Oasia Hotel downtown opened with an astounding ratio of 1,110%. In discussing this escalation of the amount of greenery from Newton Suites to Park Royal, the architects explained that the latter, Park Royal, matches the amount of greenery that is found in a park that is in front of the project site. And by visually connecting to this, the building becomes an extension of urban greenery, contributing to the wider neighborhood. With Oasia Hotel, the argument widened to include creation of ecological space. Now, the sky terraces, for example, have some 50 species of plants. The facade has another 20 species. In a post-completion audit, the building was found to attract birds and small animals, about half the number of species that are already in the neighborhood. Here is a fourth project by Woha that goes even one step further. Kampong Admiralty was completed in 2017. It is a community building that is set within a public housing estate. What we see here is not just more greenery, but new ways of integrating it with social space. The vegetation here does several things. It is, for example, a pathway for water. Rain is channeled through cascading terraces, and the clean water that is collected is then recirculated for non-potable uses. This is an example of what we call ecosystem services, wherein the building mimics processes that are found in nature. The green areas on the building are also social spaces. The roof is a park and a community garden that's accessible to the public 24/7. How these social and ecological goals come together is tied to ideas on form. The building is conceived as several interacting layers that are vertically stacked. What is also noteworthy here is that the building is seen as a subset of wider systems within the neighborhood. So the roof, for instance, is a habitat that contributes to a network of green spaces. An audit showed that Kampong Admiralty does better than Oasia in terms of the number of species it attracts. It has a diversity that far exceeds those that are found in the nearby patches of green. The building is also a social nexus. In the years since it opened, it has hosted over 130 community activities and drawn more than 83,000 visitors from across the city. So Kampong Admiralty exemplifies the next tier of regenerative design, in which social and ecological enter into a kind of a mutually beneficial partnership. So let's have a look at a few other examples. Organondi is a private development in India with about 75 homes. Many of the families that bought homes here were sold on the idea of escaping the stresses and environmental risks of the big city. The city in question was Hyderabad. The site is on the outskirts near farming communities. This is the type of development that we often see in peri-urban areas, and it is typically gated. Organondi, however, would be different. The villas are arranged around blue and green spaces. These are biophilic in nature with good water management and dense vegetation to attract biodiversity. The villas are fitted with solar panels and water collection systems that make this estate super green. It's net zero energy and zero water. The estate is also close to being self-sufficient in food consumption. Self-sufficiency in food could not be achieved if the residents did not cooperate with local farmers, getting them to work on the estate or to switch to safer organic farming techniques. So Organo began a series of workshops to educate the farmers, entering into a kind of a mutually beneficial relationship with them. Since it opened, the estate has become an advocate for better farming through seminars and events on site. As of 2018, 93 farmers in the district had switched to organic methods. The restoration of on-site systems has led to the full recharge of the nearest aquifer. The second project I'd like to share is Yangweze Park. This project exemplifies the integration of social space, which meets the demand of a growing city, while it repairs damaged ecosystems. Yangweze is situated in Jinhua City in China. The park is on a 26-hectare peninsula where two rivers converge. Originally, the site was degraded by sand quarry. The wetlands here have been restored, riparian ages and habitats have been added. As a result, the area has become a sponge which draws water to itself. At the time of the annual flood, parts of the park are allowed to be inundated, becoming inaccessible. However, access is maintained with elevated bridges that connect the two sides of the river to the cultural center that you see at the bottom of this image. During non-flood periods, of course, ramps from the bridges extend down into the wetlands, bringing visitors into that space. Based on the hydrological model, the peak flood in the area is reduced by over 60%. The park is now one of the most visited public spaces in the city, with an average of 40,000 people per day, about 14 million visitors a year. Organondi and Yangweze are examples of regenerative design. They are also acts of ecopuncture, the title of my new book. Ecopuncture is not unlike acupuncture. By understanding the wider social and ecological systems around a project, a single act of design can begin a process of healing and repair. So let's break this down a little further. Acts of ecopuncture can create a surplus of life-sustaining resources such as energy, water, food, materials. They can regenerate lost or degraded ecosystems. Many projects, for instance, take contaminated land and bring it back to life. We see here what is referred to as a whole systems approach. And this means seeking positive impact beyond site and shell at the scale of the neighborhood and the city. It means connecting blue, green, and social layers so that they reinforce each other. To end, here are some links where you can get more information on regenerative design and ecopuncture. To complement the book, I have produced a free-to-air documentary that features conversations with design thought leaders in Asia like Woha. The videos are called the Ecopuncture interviews. Just go to YouTube and search for Ecopuncture Asia. With that, I thank you for your attention.